Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Of Stags in the Studio. I'm Logan Rundy, the Assistant Sports Director here at Fairfield University, alongside sports broadcaster Ethan Hudson. Today's guest was hired here at Fairfield in January of 2024, with previous coaching stints at Northwestern and at West Point. Our guest previously played soccer with the Philadelphia Union after being drafted in the MLS draft in 2012. Our guest played collegiate soccer at Marist, where he was all-MAC first-team student athlete. He then was on the coaching staff of Marist from 2013 to 2016. Other coaches in the nation have called him one of the best recruiters in college soccer. He has had stints in the AP Top 25 at both West Point and Northwestern. Co-workers and colleagues have raved about our guest today and his coaching experience, not only here at Fairfield and at his previous two stints. Today's guest is head men's soccer coach here at Fairfield, Krystian Witkowski. Krystian, welcome to our studio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Absolutely. We're excited to, kind of talk this morning. Our first question today is kind of, how did your coaching career begin and, how did it all start?
Great question. It's probably not too dissimilar to many other coaches, how they got their start. But at the culmination of my professional soccer career, I sustained an injury that called it quits a little bit earlier than I would have hoped. But during that time period, during my recovery, I had a chance to, whether it be John Hackworth or Jim Curtin or even Peter Novak at the time, they were displaying and modeling a career, a way of coaching, a way of teaching that was really inspiring to me. And I was able to be in that locker room, particularly with the Philadelphia Union, and watching the training sessions, watching how they conducted the sessions, the video sessions, how they managed the team. All of that really was the start of what I thought might be, a coaching career. But it wasn't until I went back to school to finish my degree, because I left early when I was drafted in January. I still had some credits to finish, and I was still doing an internship when I was playing at the Philadelphia Union, so I had to travel back and forth from Philadelphia to Poughkeepsie, New York. But it wasn't until, I had to stop playing that I connected with Coach Vigiano, my coach at Marist College, and I said, I need to get into something. I need to get involved in soccer, and I need to stay involved in soccer. So I was able to go back, finish my credits, and at the same time start coaching. And then some of the guys that I was coaching, I happened to had played with and shared the locker room with, and fellow teammates. And, they were coming to me with things they were struggling with, or whether it be on the pitch or off the pitch. And I really felt like, okay, this might be my next passion. This might be my next calling. So that's really where coaching started for me. And from there, I went on to a few different places. But, with one door closing, another one opened.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just wondering, as a former soccer player turned to coach, what is something as a coach that you feel like you didn't get as a player? Like, what's something that you enjoy about coaching that you feel like players don't get to experience?
Gosh.
Tough question. Sorry.
I don't have to do all the sprinting and the running that they have to do. I think it's as a player, you might be very much more in the present, in the now, and in the game. And as a coach and as our staff, we were able to see what the vision might be and how to build that. I think that's really fun. I think that's really exciting. The idea of being a part of somebody's development and helping them go on to achieve what they want in life, right? I think as a player, you might, as much as you might be a great teammate, it's still looking sort of internally as opposed to consistently trying to build a collective. And then as you move on within your years, from first year to second year, third year, I think that starts to evolve. Mm-hmm. You move from just like trying to survive as a first year to how can I develop this team? How can I help them grow? How can I help them lead? And I think we're always looking to see how we can identify those future leaders. So I would say obviously those are some of the differences and the fun pieces. and at the same time you wish you were still on the pitch.
Yeah.
And they have all the glory in that sense.
Yeah, I think, that's a great point. And, you've been in a couple different stops before you got here at Fairfield, but, I'm kind of curious about that, how that transition's been through, Paul Schlickman in our athletic department, who's fantastic here. How has that transition been, and, what have you, gained so far in your first year here at Fairfield?
So I think Fairfield, the athletic department, Paul Schlickman, Zach Dayton, Dr. Kelly Bomber, I think they've all been phenomenal. President Nemec, in not only making my family and I feel welcome, but I think if I can touch on Paul, I think what makes leaders, particularly from good to great, are the ones that can not only articulate a vision and a mission and have the know-how, but then it's the inspiring others to believe in that, and then even more importantly, inspiring others to act, right? A commitment to action, and over a course of time. And I think Paul has done a tremendous job with that. I think he has inspired the staff not only to believe but to see, because we are experiencing national prominence. We are, and that's a big reason why I am so in love with coming to work every day. And I know I speak on behalf of the staff, but you can see it, you can feel it. There's energy in the hallways. There's energy on campus, in the community. So as far as my transition here, I feel like I've had a great group of people that have not only shown, what the vision might be moving forward, but how to get there, and constantly feeling like you have what you need, which I feel like whether it be Fairfield Soccer or the rest of the athletic department, I feel like we truly have what we need to be successful on the national stage.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I feel like you said, like a big part of success, I feel like, is the relationship that the coach has to its players. So you're obviously a former player. As a former player, do you feel like you can kind of relate to your team more just because like this, you've been in similar situations, you've been in that same headspace?
I would like to think so, but I really have to compliment the staff, Johnny Raj, Gordon Botterill, Anthony Paolini. They have done a tremendous job, whether it be helping the group through, the challenging start to the season, the constant conversations they have, the ability to relate to them. We have two guys on staff, particularly with Johnny and Gordon, that have graduated from Fairfield, played, at Fairfield, won championships here, played professionally. So it's very easy to see their path and try to follow their footsteps. And I think they've done a tremendous job to be able to consistently, support the guys in every way they need. And as a former player myself, I think you try to remember those moments, particularly if I give you an example. When I was playing with the Chicago Fire, I think I had 2 starts, and I scored a couple goals, and then I didn't play for like 10 games. And I'm like, what's going on? And, I'm upset, and I'm thinking this and that of the coach, and I'm like, what has he got against me? And then, a couple months towards the end of the season, I got a start, and I played particularly well. And I remember at the end of the game, the coach said, "That's exactly what I'm looking for." And I was upset because I'm like, why didn't you tell me that earlier? I would have just done that. And then years down the road, I was upset at myself because I should ask the question. I should have approached him. So if I take that lesson, I want to make sure there isn't a player or a student athlete in the locker room at any point doesn't know what we need from them, what we would like to see from them, how they're doing, how we view they're doing. So I think that's really important. I try to just pull on that personal experience of making sure the guys have clarity, making sure the relationships are there. And then my personal experiences of injury, we've had 1 or 2 guys that have had a really unfortunate experience of injuries. And having gone through that and ensuring that they're cared for, that they continue to see that they're a valued member of the team. Those are, anytime you can relate in those ways, I think it always helps. But I am moving further and further away from the playing days. So I think the staff has done a tremendous job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. It's something we don't really talk about all the time of, really that personal relationship from coach to player. And I think that's really important, and even if you're not that star player, just to make sure you feel, involved in some way or another. I feel like that's what gels a team together. So it's an excellent point. I kind of want to just move into like what your day-to-day as a team is. I understand you guys have, lift practice, but, in practice, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of, physical and drills and stuff. But in terms of the mental side of things, what's that message to the team? I know, Jackie Kane always has a message for her team. As a coaching staff, what do you guys like to deliver to your squad as well?
Sure. I think the messaging depends on the game. I think the messaging depends post-game as well. We try to, prior to the game, if we're just taking, for example, the cadence now, which we've, for the past couple of weeks, have been Wednesday, Saturday. It's not a lot of time to continue to look backwards, and you have to, look at now and what's ahead of you. So we do a quick reflection after the game in different moments of the game, whether it be in possession, out of possession, transitional moments. We try to focus on where we did well, while that encompasses where we could have, improved and need to continue to improve, but showcasing how to do that as opposed to not what to do. I think that's been very powerful for the team. Moving, we try not to focus too much on the opponent, but we need to know how the strategy might shift a little bit. Is it a back four? Is it a back five? Do they like to build up? Do they like to attack on the right side, on the left side? Do they have a post-up striker? So we still play within our game model, if you will, with the context and foresight on what the opponent might try to do against us. That would be prior, to the game, and then I think there's also from you talk about messaging and Jackie Kane. We're looking at the next 10 days, right? Today is day 9, and we have this principle of competing in every action on and off the field with a relentless effort. And yesterday we had a great training session, and we said, all right, that's day 10, and today is day 9, and we're solely focusing on one day, one moment, one play at a time. It's easy to look at games and just to focus on what needs to be achieved and to get ahead of yourself. But with the focus of our process, it's making sure we win the moment. And we talk a lot about winning the moment and how small victories add up. And the winning the moment today means how do you show up for focus in the team meeting? How do you show up with focus in the lift? How do you show up with focus in the warm-up? And you take each action and each moment at a time. And then you look at the end of the day and be like, okay, all right, I won the day. And that could be in the classroom as well. It could be, I got a B+ on a paper that I thought I wasn't going to do so well on. So that's another small victory. Coach Mike Harris has been phenomenal in the weight room to support everything that we're trying to achieve on the pitch. There's a great synergy there with Jada, our trainer. Everyone is kind of having, in communication and consistently understanding where are we, what are we trying to achieve, who needs support. So those are all conversations that happen prior to training, post-training. And then, there's always the individual development plans that we have for the players to be able to feel like they are working on what they individually need to work on as well. So we try to incorporate that into the training sessions along with the collective.
You started talking about this at the end. Do you think, obviously you guys have had some tough games that haven't broken your way. How do you keep the faith? Is it those small victories where you keep the faith, you keep everyone bought into the, the ethos of the team? Like, this is what we're going to do. We know what we're going to do. We're going to do it. It might not be working now, but.
Yeah, I think a huge credit has to go, and this is a big part of our theme as a department, Forge Resilient. The resiliency of this group is phenomenal. I can't honestly pick a moment that I felt that this group lost belief in each other. And if there was anything that when I first came to connect with this team and to learn more about them, they each individually at one point said, I think the strength of this brotherhood, the relationships, is one of the competitive advantages, if you will, compared to the rest of the country. And it's true. You see it in moments where we go away to play UConn and we get a result out of there, how we open up the MAC against a Marist College side that also beat a top 18 team in the country. So I think this is a team that has continued to believe in each other. There are, whether it's a new coaching staff coming in with new ideas that took some time to transition to. We had a bit of an unfortunate bug of injuries at the beginning of the season that once that first half of the season was completed, I think, again, we went 5 of 6 undefeated in the second half of the season. So lots of credit to the guys and, again, to the staff for continuing to have those conversations, to identifying what the guys need on and off the field. I think that's a big part. And then that forward thought process where what's the next thing that we need to do as a group as opposed to continuously reflecting on what has been done.
I think as athletes, we're always thinking about the future in the next 5 games, next 4 games. And I kind of like how you guys take it, that 10-day span. I really enjoy that, philosophy and mindset. And in terms of culture, I think that's a Fairfield University mentality. We've interviewed many coaches, and they have a very similar philosophy, but it's very different to what you guys are doing, so that's excellent. I kind of want to talk about the leadership on this team because I think it's really important. I talked to Will Pierce just for a few minutes yesterday. He's a great guy here, junior from New Zealand, so he's had some experience under his belt as well. Kind of talk about, how those, the seniors, juniors, I know you have a couple graduate students on the squad as well, so kind of what has their leadership role been, and how has that affected the team in a positive light?
Great question. I think we have captains on the team, 3 captains on the team, Alex Oliveira, Cody Reed, and Thomas Trillian. And then we also have a leadership council that is comprised of every class. So we meet weekly, and part of those simple questions are, what do you need? What does the team need? What individual might be going through something that we need to look after him a little bit more? Where does there need to be more clarity? Reflection on our operations, how we travel. So they very much have a voice, and their recommendations or their decisions go into action, right? It's not just informational. Mm-hmm. So I think they have real, I would say, control of how the locker room environment is, and they manage and continue to manage a lot of, player-to-player relations, which I'm very happy of how they've been able to conduct themselves and to lead from the front. And I think it goes back to your question about inspiring belief and continuing to believe. I think those guys, having been through it and having experienced it, they know what the ups and downs are of a season and how you can continue to be steadfast in the approach. Maintaining standards, right? I think that's one of the biggest principles that we've tried to incorporate coming in as a new staff are the standards and the world-class environment that we're trying to maintain, in the professionalism and training and how we dress and how we demand from each other on the pitch. So they have had a hand in all of that.
I think what you said about standard too is so important, just having a certain bar that you need to reach every time you practice or play or meet up for a team meeting. So I guess I was just wondering, how do you develop those standards? How do you go into practice or a game knowing what standards you need to obtain, and how do you articulate that to your staff and players?
Well, for myself, I had a great mentor, Russell Payne, who I worked with almost 8 years at Army West Point and then on to Northwestern. He's someone that has been a part of national championships, national team, World Cup qualifying, Gold Cup, Nations League, Olympics. So he would always demand a high standard from his staff. He would demand a high standard from the team, from himself. I always complimented him about him to others on the fact that he really didn't only do the talk, but he led from the front. If it was going to visit a recruit across the country and then be back for training in the morning, he was the first one willing to do it. So I think as a staff and how that's translated to Fairfield, we need to embody what we are expecting from the team. So if it's being on time, which is a huge core principle for us, then we are there early and we are never late. If it's about making sure that we maintain focus and respect when we're communicating a game plan, if the player has something to share, then we stop, we listen. And, something that Carly had a chance to sit down with her, that she mentioned, if there's at any point one of her players needs something, she stops everything she's doing and she's like, that's my most important part right now. And so I want to show and demonstrate that same level of respect as the staff does. So by embodying those values and then empowering them, we talked about giving them real autonomy in decisions and action, and then the encouragement part, right? The reflection part. Because with empowerment and with autonomy and with action comes consequences, positive or, maybe it didn't work out. So how do you reflect on that? How do you have that growth mindset to be able to reflect, help them see and guide, where did that decision maybe has gone well and maybe where it didn't. So embodying, empowering, encouraging them, and then also not forgetting to find the joy in it, right? Because those standards, while they're non-negotiable, you need to always find the opportunities to highlight someone when they are doing well. It's not just focusing on, hey, you didn't wear the right, shirt today to training. So there was one example from the game the other day where we had a mistake on the pitch against Merrimack, and then one of our captains immediately went to that player, picked him up, and made sure, he dusted him off. So next play.
That must be awesome as a coach to see that.
Yeah,
awesome.
and we said that, so that's what we highlighted, right? Yeah. So when we talk about standards and how we fight for each other, that's the moment that we show on video. And so when you talked about like how do you articulate that, I think it started with the staff as well, being on the same page, being able to then lead from the front, and then coaching the guys up, and then letting the captains and the leadership group eventually lead themselves. And then the coaching staff comes in there with a few points when they have to.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. It's an awesome thing to see, just leadership from, maybe a side that's not, I don't think a record reflects who they really are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really misunderstanding, not even just in sports, but especially in the NCAA, where it's such a high level to compete. I think just the character, it speaks more than, wins and losses. And I think that's, absolutely reflected here in this program. I always, go back to the joy that we mentioned a couple minutes ago. Is there a team bonding thing or something you guys do in practice on a daily basis that, everybody kind of shares that joy? And, kind of how does that affect you guys, going to the next day, next training session, things like that?
Sure. Big shout out to Joe Arena. He is our Fun Friday specialist, so he puts together a video every Friday that gets the guys feeling a little bit light, having a good laugh, usually at the expense of each other. Coaching staff is not excluded from that as well. So it's a good way for everyone to, remember the joys of being a part of a team, and it's just one of our unique ways that we've been able to have a little bit of a team ritual. And then we always play, the games, competitive training sessions, so there's always something to play for, right? Whether it be, who gets to clean up the gear after training, or it might be who gets free Chipotle, something like that. Right. So, yeah, all little ways to be able to just, fuel the journey.
Do you think that's made you appreciate the game more now, looking at all these guys? And knowing that you're a part of that now, like considering your position now as a leader of this team, do you think you appreciate what the game brings more? If not just career opportunities, social aspect.
Yeah, I think Fairfield, specifically Fairfield, has made me appreciate the game more. The values of this institution, the community feel, the alumni are incredible here. I mean, I've never experienced a program that our alumni, are so invested in not just the program, but specifically the student athletes and the development of the student athletes. They are consistently on a weekly basis reaching out. How can we help the current student athletes to achieve what they want in life? So for me, that's been inspiring. And, our purpose, the staff's purpose every day is the holistic development of these young men to go on to make sure they have the right values, skills, habits to achieve whatever they want.
Right.
So as far as appreciating the game, I kind of put that, I really want to put that in that bucket of like development, right? Because we're using the sport as a vehicle to help them build those habits and skills. So being a head coach, I not only appreciate other head coaches more because I talked to, some of the former coaches I used to work for, and I just said, hey, I get it. At least I'm starting to get it. And the difficulty at which you're consistently having to think of the collective and how every detail matters. So I've grown to appreciate how there isn't any detail that you can't, improve or try to strive for in an excellent fashion. That includes the game, and then that includes off the pitch. So I would say I appreciate that and the fact that Fairfield is consistently striving for excellence in a very comprehensive way.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's something as, the three of us are all part of this Fairfield community. The alumni network is something that's almost uncomparable in other, communities. And I think that's something that makes this school as great as it is. And the Jesuit values that we talk about all the time of, being the best version of yourself, inclusion for everybody. And obviously there's so much more. That's really what makes Fairfield what it is. I think, to kind of start the wrap-up process, if you were to, have a message or a moment in your career or anything, what do you remember? What do you want athletes or people that have been around you to remember most about you, whether it's on the pitch, whether that's a message you gave them, something you live by, really anything that can leave some inspiration?
Really good question. When I consider our purpose, the development of, the person, the student athlete, I think that we challenge them. We challenge them to the point where at times it's, it could feel very, very heavy. It could feel like a burden, like the expectation that we have for our student athletes. And I think I also go back to what the staff has done a tremendous job with is, but we care for them just as strongly. So if you wanted to kind of refer to like legacy and what you impart on these young men is that with that challenge and with that growth and navigating through the ups and downs, those that were a part of your process, that were there for you to support and care for you so that you could keep going, so that you never give up. I would love that lesson to be imparted on all the guys, to feel that level of resilience that they have learned, that they can go through, some of the most difficult moments in their lives and know that there's an opportunity on the other side to continue to grow and to never give up. I would love to go to the weddings of the players and look them in the eyes and be like, I never gave up. I kept going. I kept growing. And even when it was difficult, I remember the lessons. And then I leaned on the people that cared for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's like you said, it's a brotherhood, definitely. Really cool to see, too, especially, like you said, at Fairfield, that sense of community, how that carries over to our sports teams. That's awesome to see. I just wanted to thank you for your time today. This has been great.
Likewise.
Appreciate you being here.
Am I going to see you all at the game?
Absolutely.
We're hoping so. So speaking of that, tomorrow they play here at Fairfield one more time at Lessing Field for their final home game of the season. And then, lucky for the Fairfield community, the final game of the season is just in Connecticut, about 45 minutes down the street. November 6th, Wednesday, that's a 2 p.m. start at Quinnipiac. So, again, the opportunities here in the state of Connecticut, Fairfield Faithful shows out. So we really encourage that to happen here at the university, and we can't thank you enough for being here this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure. For any of our Stags in the Studio episodes, we've had previous coaches and members of the athletic department come in, so please go check those out on our YouTube page as well. For myself, Logan Rundy, the assistant sports director here at Fairfield University, Ethan Hudson, who is one of our sports broadcasters, and a huge thank you to Coach Krystian Witkowski, our head men's soccer coach here, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Good luck, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.